Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Impact webinar on navigating Vietnam's power development plan and wind investment opportunities. I'm your host, Ho Nam, a senior content analyst from Leader Associates, and I'm very delighted to have you guys here today. This webinar is also a virtual session of Vietnam's largest and most influential green wind events, SM Wind Energy 2023, which will take place on October 30 and 31 at Adora Center, Ho Chi Minh City. In addition to your participation to this webinar, we also look forward to meeting you in person at this flagship wind events, which brings the highest level decision makers across the entire wind value chains, including Norwegian Embassy, British Embassy, Germany Embassy, Danish Embassy, Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, Goldwind, Vestas, GE Renewable Energy, Equinor, PDP Renewables, to discuss the latest innovations and fill your business future by meaningful connections. In an eagerly awaited and very exciting development for Vietnam's wind power market, Vietnam's 8th National Power Development Plan, known as PDP8, has recently been approved by the Deputy Prime Minister. This plan set out the country's electricity roadmap from now until 2030. With a vision towards 2045, it represents Vietnam's clearest commitment to decarbonization since announcing its net zero ambitions at the COP26 summit in October 2021. For a country blessed with abundant renewable resources, the approval of PDP8 brings promising news to the investors hungry for opportunities in the energy transition sector. Today, we're gathered here to dive into the visionary strategies to de-risk investments and gain valuable insights into navigating the evolving regulatory landscape of Vietnam's wind sector under the new PDP8. This webinar is designed to be interactive, so please feel free to ask any questions using the chat box under your screen. We value your engagements and aim to create a meaningful and enriching experience for all participants here. Now, without further ado, let's commence this Impact webinar. Please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to our first keynote speaker on stage, Mr. Nguyen Nao Phan Dong, legal specialist from VV and PCC3. He will elaborate on PDP8 and policy developments in Vietnam's wind energy and what comes next. And now let's welcome Dong on stage.
Hi, thank you everyone. Thank you, Ho Nam. I hope everyone can hear me well. And wait. Okay, all right. I guess everyone can see my slide. This is the second time I participated in a webinar by Leader Associates, and last time was before the PDP8 approval. So this time would be different. We address the key takeaways from the PDP8, and then I will talk about the wind policy development, including legal changes such as the planning law and the national marine spatial plan, and then with what I found from the PDP8 and the marine the current state of policy, I would give my conclusion on the policy outlook. Sorry. All right. I'm from PCC3, and we have more than 40 years of experience in the power sector. And our company has been listed on Hanoi Stock Exchange in 2009. And we have extensive experience in renewable energy, and most of our projects are located in the south and south central of Vietnam. I will start with the energy capacity according to the PDP8. So for the onshore wind, the capacity of onshore wind by 20 2030 is expected to be more than 21 gigawatt, and making up 40.5% of the energy share. And the capacity of 2050 is estimated to be threefold and even nearly fourfold, making up 12 to 13% of the energy share. For offshore wind, the 2030 capacity is 6 gigawatt, making up 4%. And in 2050, the capacity is expected to up to 70 gigawatt to 91 gigawatt. That is significant. But please keep in mind that this number is only for domestic consumption, which not include energy for export and renewable energy for production of new energies. New energy means green hydrogen and ammonia and other green energy. So if you want to make a comprehensive calculation of the total wind capacity in Vietnam, you should take into account wind energy for export and for green hydrogen as well. So, and next, another important point in the PDP8 is the energy export strategy. So, according to the PDP, the capacity of energy export is expected to reach 5 gigawatt to 10 megawatt by 2030, and by 2030, Vietnam would develop a high voltage direct current transmission grid in the central, south central, and north Vietnam to facilitate the utilization of the offshore wind power. And we would research all the possibilities of connection across the Asian Pacific regions. And Vietnam would research and develop the cross-border transmission grid in Asia. So the idea of cross-border transmission is not something new. It has been around 20 years based on the Asian Power Grid, which is an initiative to connect national transmission line among the Asian member states. And Asian member states are working on a multilateral power trade, and Vietnam has already had a transmission line with Laos, and we are planning to have another one with Cambodia. Early this year, Vietnam just signed a memorandum with Singapore to research the possibility of selling electricity to Singapore from offshore wind project in Vietnam, and it is expected that we would need $40.9 billion for achieving that target. Next, another interesting point in the PDP8 is the renewable energy hub. So in 2030, Vietnam would develop 2 inter-regional renewable energy hubs in potential regions of Vietnam. And the hubs would include renewable energy plants with capacity up to 2 gigawatt and 4 gigawatt, and mostly offshore wind. They include a manufacturing facility for renewable, transportation, construction, installation, and auxiliary services, and also the research and training center for renewable. So this picture may help you imagine what a renewable energy hub looks like. So it includes a offshore wind farm not too far from a factory for green hydrogen production, with all sorts of transportation and object solution nearby. It is something we call co-location, where everything that can support each other is located within a single place. So important days. These are key policy that is addressed in the PDP8. First is the update to the electricity law. So it may take place in 2024. So and then we may expect a law on renewable energy, privatization of transmission risk and development, policy on the direct power purchase agreement, price bidding and auction, local content requirements, and circular economy in renewable energies, which is the recycling of wind turbine and the solar panel. So to fully translate what are addressed in the PDP8, we need an actionable framework and procedure to do so. So we may expect a law, renewable energy law by the National Assembly, as well as other regulations by the Prime Minister, relevant ministry, and provincial authority as well. I will go to the second part. Following the PDP8 as well as some legal changes, we may expect some some change to the wind project development process as well. So this is the old process in 2016, and we used to have a separate wind and power development plan at the provincial level. As you can see here, the request for decision on investment is a key process, and you need to secure a decision on investment to proceed with the rest of your project. But many legal changes have been put in place since 2016, which make this process no longer applicable. I will explain why. So, but to give you a better explanation, I take the wind development plan of Darwin as an example. So in the wind plan, there's a wind map which has a list of identified wind energy areas, which they call projects. And you can propose a wind power plant within the designated area, or if you found an area with wind potential, but it has not yet listed in the plan, you can request to edit it. This is the wind areas in Japan right now, and as you can see, all of the areas have already been occupied. So from 2016, many legal policy have been put in place, notably the law on planning, which came into effect in 2019. It introduced the concept integrated planning. In 2021, the wind development plans and their planning circle technically. So there would be no separate power development plan as the provincial level, and it shall be integrated in a single provincial master plan under the concept of integrated planning. So early this year, the MOITs introduced the circular one, which removes some important legal framework in the circular to 2019. Sorry. So to give you a better understanding of the situation, I need to talk a little bit about the national planning hierarchy according to the law on planning. So in this picture, there's a national master plan, which is the highest one, covering on aspect of Vietnam. And below are the National Marine Spatial Plan, which is relevant to the offshore wind because it has an identified areas for wind energy. I call offshore wind map. It tells you which area is allowed for offshore wind development and which which should not. And next we have the national land use plan. It is the reason why we need to update the law of land recently. And below are the national sectoral plans, including power development plan, railway network plan, energy master plan, and seaport system plan. So there is a list of all sectoral plans in the law of planning. And below are the regional level planning and the provincial level planning. So 64 provinces and city in Vietnam have their own master plan at the provincial level. I'm trying to explain the situation to you as simple as possible. So the MOAT used to have the authority to approve and govern the power development plan as the provincial level, but the plan is now integrated into a single provincial master plan, which is under the authority of the Prime Minister. So there is a change of authority. And after the approval of PDP8, everything must follow the law on planning. So because of that, we need to reevaluate our project development strategy and establish a new process. So I would like to talk a little bit about the National Marine Spatial Plan. So this is the first draft back in 2022, and as you can see here, there's an offshore wind map with indicate areas that they allow for offshore wind development. These are just preliminary areas, and from what I know, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment is working very hard on this, and they work with international and domestic experts to come up with a final solution. So the offshore wind map is constructed based on a map overlay concept, which includes maps of different aspects. And the offshore wind map must address following issues such as the technical potential, the levelized cost of electricity, constraints and relevant infrastructure, transmission and congestion areas, and shipping activities. So there are many things that the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment must consider to come up with a final map. So the marines, the offshore wind map, from what I know, the policy of offshore for the offshore wind development will be significantly influenced by the offshore wind map. And the PDP8 is just a first step, and we need to do many things next to actually translate what key points in it. So the PDP8 is still a key legal basis for a competent authority to issue relevant policies and approval for the development of wind projects. And the PDP8 links with the National Marine Spatial Plan and all the national sectoral plans. And the PDP8 shape the regional and provincial plans that are still in development. So the planning of wind energy at the provincial level must not conflict with the PDP8 and other higher level plans such as the National Marine Spatial Plan. And if any such conflict arises, the National Marine Spatial Plan would prevail and the PDP8 would prevail over the provincial plan. So there are lots of things that we should consider. From my opinion, the wind energy development will be aligned with the transmission grid, other constraints such as land use, the property issue, seabed allocation, cost reduction, in the industrial demand such as the green hydrogen or green steel, and the maturity of the competitive electricity market. In the near future, what we should look forward to is a legal framework for the approval of the wind project development, either through auction or investor approval under the investment law. And we need the approval of the provincial master plan with clear wind target and identify wind energy area with with regard to the planning law and the PDP8. And we need the approval of the National Marine Spatial Plan with offshore wind target allocation. And the offshore wind map should provide us with a conflict-free areas for offshore wind development. And as a developers, we should be well informed about the policy changes from international commitment by Vietnam to the national law. So because we are coming to a situation where many legal changes would be taking place in a short period of time after the PDP approval and the JETB commitment. And for that, we need to timely adapt to new regulatory requirements at all levels and adjust project development strategy to legal, social, and technical constraints based on our risk appetite. Thank you very much. I think this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Don, for your very informative sharing. It's really thought-provoking and insightful. And I do believe Vietnam will keep taking major steps forward with further, detailed incentives. And for sure, during your presentation, we've already received so many interesting questions from our audience, and I'm sure they're seeking to have all of your answers to their questions. So firstly, do you know why the offshore wind target by 2030 is only like 6 gigawatt, which is lower than the number estimated in the previous draft of PDP8, which includes 7 gigawatt of offshore wind capacity?
I understand. Thank you for the questions. And many people have asked me the same question, and I'm eager to find the answer too. But as for now, the MOIT has not explained why there is a 1 gigawatt missing in the final PDP8 and the forecast. But we should keep in mind that the forecast of offshore wind target also account for other aspects, such as infrastructure and demand. And I think those who make the forecast were just being cautious in their approach. And as I mentioned, in one of my first slides, the PDP8 provide that the target of offshore wind capacity by 2030 can be increased if the technology became mature and the electricity price and transmission fee become affordable. So I think the 6 gigawatt target is just tentative, it's just temporary, and it depends on how the situation unfolds in the future.
Thank you, Don. And we also have some questions from our audience, and raising some of the questions from our audience for you to answer. The first question from our audience is Bruce Chan. So Mr. Chan wants to know, like, for the renewable energy hubs, are they actually connected to the offshore wind farms which are already online, or those new offshore wind farms that that's going to online? You can have a
Yeah, yes,
more
I
opinion.
can answer the question. Thank you. It's an interesting one. Thank you, Chen. And there is an information about whether it should be a new one, a completely new one, or we can utilize already operating offshore wind farm. So, from my point of view, we can for renewable energy hopes can utilize two options that you just mentioned. It depends on the location. So if a renewable energy hub is located in a completely new area with no offshore wind farm nearby, then we have to construct a completely new offshore wind. But if we have if the location has already had a offshore wind farm nearby, we can utilize it as well. So that it depends on the situation. Thank you. Sorry, I can hear you. Hold on.
I don't. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, all right, yeah. So we also got another really interesting question from Mr. Lock Win. So Mr. Win wants to know like the selling price for like new project, if they place the auction mechanism, and will the EVM consider the the selling price recently for the transitional project and apply them for the new project?
Thank you for your question. This is also interesting, and but unfortunately, we I have a discussion with in some meeting in Hanoi early this year, and uh, they raised the problem that the EVN has irresponsible for determining the electricity price, but they are not a like they do not have the authority to conduct auction or bidding in such a case. So we're not coming to the discussion of how EVN would consider the EVN's sorry, how whether EVN could consider the selling price recently for the transitional projects. I don't honestly, I don't have that information, and I think that we have not talked about it this time. Thank you.
Interesting, John, but we're looking forward to like new details that will be released in the future regarding this part. And we also got the final questions from Mr. I think Brian Barry. So this is a question actually from a developer perspective, and he wants to know like what do you affect the system for awarding like new wind project, and there's a PDP8, because as you mentioned, like it can be auctions or and there's a lot of investments. So do you have any ideas about how like will this work, and what developers should prepare for the new like mechanisms of this part?
Yes, this is exactly the problem right now, and we have been talking about this in 2021. We have two options. We can when we can rely on the traditional investor approval under the investment law or the renewable energy auction. So I think the government is doing a research on renewable energy auction, and the PDP8 also have addressed some points about the renewable energy auction. But and from what I know, Uh, there's many solution proposed to the government, and one of the proposed solution I have heard that is the People's Committee at the provincial level would implement a renewable energy auction over an identified area or a certain capacity. For example, if a province is allocated 200 megawatts for wind energy, it is responsible for conducting the auction for the total amount or a fraction of it, depending on their capability. So auction winner would be granted an investment approval under the investment law and allowed to do further wind assessment. But as I said, this is just one of the solution proposed, and we have to wait for, I guess, at least 2024 to know precisely what will be put in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dom. Even though I think there are still like some overarching issues that need to be addressed, but we're still looking forward to more, positive signal that will be probably released in the future in the Vietnam wind
Yes.
sector. And many thanks for your really detailed and professional answers to all these questions. And I look forward to learning more about your perspective on our upcoming in-person event, ASEAN Wind Energy 2023 in Ho Chi Minh City this October.
Okay, I see there are many other questions as well, right?
Yes, I think since there are actually some time limitation, but we'll leave this part to you. You can answer the questions in the Q&A box after your session by tapping the questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. And now please join me to welcome our second keynote speaker, Mr. Hong Fan, the Managing Director from VSC Lawyers. Fan will explain the current situation of the Transitional Renewable project and introduce the latest regulatory updates on the transitional projects. So Fan, the floor is open for you right now. Please start your presentation.
Okay, so I will. Hello everyone. So this is Fan, this is James from VSC Lawyers. So today I will share with you some of the information and update on the regulatory transitional project. So for the first one is my presentation will focus on first one is what is the transitional project. The second one is applicable policy for a current policy for the transitional project. The third one is the status of transitional project, and for the first one is for note and some forecast from our perspective for what is the upcoming next for the transitional project. Come to the first one. So the transitional project is primarily includes some project a renewable project a wind and solar, which is laid for the latest COD as required by the feed-in tariff mechanism as stipulated by the government. So that you may see that previously in Vietnam, so the government encouraged the development of wind and solar from a mechanism called a feed-in tariff, in which the government stipulate a price which is higher than the purchase price from another type of energy to encourage some of the renewable energy investor to invest in the renewable energy project. So, but they provide some deadline for some investor, and the investor should be meet the deadline together with some legal requirement in order to get and to obtain the feed-in tariff, which can sell the electricity to EVN for some certain fixed price called the feed-in tariff. And if we understand for the definition of transitional project, so what is now is for the second part is the applicable policy for the transitional project. So it means that for the first one is for October 2022, the Ministry of Industry and Trade issued Circular 15 on some mechanism for calculation of bracket for the transitional project. And so in Circular 15, so the MOIT just stipulate with some calculation formula for price bracket for the transitional project, and also like some legislation procedure for establishment of like a price bracket. And the third one is very important, is like a determination of some like a very relevant parameter for the calculation process. And subsequently, the Ministry of like Industry and Trade (MIT) issued the decision 21, like a stipulate on like a detail the bracket for the electricity purchase price for the transitional project. So you may see.
Sorry, James. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. Are you gonna use your slides? But it seems like you haven't to share your screen right now.
Yeah. So like I just sorry. So like do you like see my? So do you see my screen?
Yes, I can see you right now, and I suggest you to make a full display so that we can have a bigger picture of your slides.
Okay. Yeah. So like this is my. So this is my slide. Okay. Just so you can see my slide right now.
Yep, I can see in full display.
Okay. Yeah. So like to continue for like my presentation. So like for the decision 21, so like it's stipulate for the bracket of electricity price. So you may see that like the selling price under decision 21 is for like applicable for like a 4 type of like a wind and solar project. The first one is for the ground mount solar project, floating solar project, onshore and offshore wind. So for this price, so it is like a lower, like from 20 to like a 30% in comparison with the estimate feed-in tariff quote in BND. So like this one is like a propose some like a concern from the investor from the transitional project, because like you may see that like even the selling price is like not the price applicable for the transitional project, but it is the highest price applicable and like based on some negotiation process. So we like the investor need to negotiate the proper price lower than the selling price. And but like in the context that like a circular 15 is like a not stipulate detailedly on what is the procedures on the negotiation process. So like the electricity power trading company just propose to EVN on the suggestion of negotiation plan in order to like restore this one, because like even we have the selling price, but like we don't have any like exact mechanism for negotiation for the official price applicable for the transitional project. So it may lead to like some delay in the electricity generation for such project. So official letters like 1193 just stipulate on like a first one is like a relevant document from the transitional investor, and the second one is like some principle and procedures for negotiation for such transitional project. And the first and very important one is like they require for the temporary application of the immediate purchase price equivalent to like a 50% of the selling price. So the selling price you may see in the decision 21. So like this one, and they require to apply immediately, but like equivalent to like a 50% of the selling price for the transitional project. And in order to do this, so the investor of transitional project can immediately like generate the energy, and EVN will buy the electricity from the transitional project based on this price. And so like this one is like on one hand will like reduce a bit the loss from the investor, but like on the another hand, so like the investor is still suffer for the very like a low IRR, because like you may see that even though like the selling price under decision 21 is quite lower than the estimated feed-in tariff, but now for immediate like energy generation, so they have to like apply for the like 50% of this selling price. And so the status of, so like for the next one is like for the status of transitional project. So you may see that like now is a meeting of National Assembly, and so many like congressmen, they very like concerned on the status of EVN, because like we are suffer some like deficit in the energy, and we suffer some blackout in the hot weather in the state, and so many congressmen, they pose a very high question that like why some transitional project cannot generate the electricity. It's a huge waste, but like we still like not have enough energy for like our consumption from the domestic consumption. So it's for EVN to like update the status of negotiation project and like a transitional project in this website. And like as the latest information I have, so like on June 2022, 65 transitional project had been submitted the document to like EPTC, like the power trading company, to negotiate the like electricity price and for the sale contract. So you may see that like under the official letter 1193, so the power trading companies, so they just request a document from investor, and investor have to submit a document for like a start the negotiation process. And in which so like 56 projects had proposed the temporary price with like equal to like 50% of the selling price of the bracket. So according to Decision 21, so like you may see that like so many like investors, those they start to negotiate and start to like generate the electricity to the like to the grid by accept the 50% of selling price. And like even for the transitional project or official project, so the investors still need to like comply with like some another law on planning or another like a license. But like due to the delays in the energy license, and some license has expired and it needs to be like revised. So we have like the event also like calculate for some project in which so we have 9 projects had been like complete the COD procedures, and like 19 projects had been accepted from like from the some work and part of the work. 27 projects had run with the electricity operation license for the whole or the part of the plant. This means that like the electricity operation license is very like important part of like the generation of electricity. And 24 projects have been designed to extend for the investment registration certificate, because you may know that like why you invest in Vietnam, so like you have to apply for the investment registration certificate, and some certificate has been like expired and it needs to be like extend, and the MOIT and the government has guide for like some support, like a special like a support for the license from the transitional project. And so like based on this one, so like we come to the like next part, and like some note and forecast. So you may see that like for prevention of any waste, so the government now is like very like focus on resolving all relevant matters of transitional project for like electricity generation. And especially like the Deputy Prime Minister request for the revision of Circular 15 and Decision 21 in the meeting on May 2023 to facilitate the electricity generation of transitional project. And you may see that like back to like my previous slide, the current feed-in tariff, the current price, like a temporary price applicable for the transitional project is like a very low. It should be like a very only equivalent to like a 50% of the selling price. So like some investor, they may expect that like this price can be like some like when they apply for the official price for the transitional project. So there is some like a retroactive mechanism, which is like a reapply for like the period in which the temporary price applies. So like this one is some for my update for the current status and like a legislation for the transitional project, which is like a very like a high concern in the current like a situation of Vietnam. So like this is my presentation, and like if you have some like a question or like so like please to like support to me. And like for this one is like my personal information and like for my firm. So like if you have any further question, so please like let me know for like any better answer.
Thank you, James, and thank you so much for your really kind sharing of the regulatory updates on the progress of renewable energy transitional projects. And the main aspect that industry stakeholders should be aware of. I'm sure this is a very solid presentation for our audience and for the whole industry. And of course, during your presentation, we've received some questions in the Q&A box. So I would like to select some of the questions for you to answer. So the first question is based on your presentation. So shall the US dollar commodity price is still like applicable for the transitional project in the context the feed-in tariff quoted in is actually quoted in US dollar?
Okay, so like you may see my like a slide on like on my comparison. So like as you know that like the feed-in tariff it costs in USD, but now like own document and like own price is not like the USD like a link or USD squat is not like is this in like either like a selling price or even in the future official price applicable for like any transitional project. And in my prediction, so like for the new project like developed after the transitional project, so like the USD link or like the USD squat is maybe like not applicable or not exist for like at least for the transaction from the even for the EVN or like some DPPA mechanism.
Thank you, James. And we also got some questions in the Q&A box. So there is questions from I think Mr. Lock Wayne. So he wants to know, like, as legal perspective, is project in the PDP7 not yet signed with PPA with EVM? So is it possible if they are still wanting to implement the project?
Yeah, so like as far as I know that like now the government
when the auction mechanic to wait until the official like renewable law or electric adjustments law.
Yeah. Okay. So like as far as I know that because you may know that the current situation in Vietnam is that EVN is like suffer very like a huge loss in the revenues, and the situation now is the government would like to like focus on the PPPA mechanism for the project in which so like you are the high demanding customer and the energy generator can sell the energy directly to EVA to this like a high consumption so a high consumption customer, and the EVN is like it's just like a broken or like just like a risk like a controller in order to like get some fee in the transaction. And for the purchase from EVN, so I think that like it's still possible, but like I do think that like there is no like a special like a mechanism or like there is no like some kind of like some price high get like the feed-in tariff if like any like for any like a sub kind of like a transaction. So EVN would like to like apply for the court or like from the auction, because EVN even like it's like considered as the state-owned, but like a state-owned company, but it's still a company and it should be like be responsible for like it's like a revenue or like a financial like obligation on like in like any transaction. And like from like now on, so like they should be like very carefully when like put any price for the renewable energy like a project.
Okay. Thank you, James. And another question is the conception of the so-called transitional project. So as the transitional project is actually really highlighted in your presentation. It wants to know like what are those so-called transitional projects, and are these projects which has commenced but without the a clear conception about what the transitional project is?
Yeah, so like we have the like some like a definition. So like back to like my first like a slide. So like we have like a very clear definition on the transitional project. So the transitional project is the project like developed within the like PDP7, but like they are like intention to enjoy with the feed-in tariff, but and they finish for the construction. But now the CODs, I mean the day of electricity generation is late for the latest COD, which is 31 December of 2020 applicable for the solar project, and 31 October 2021 applicable for the wind project. So due to the delay, so the government think that of course we have the feed-in tariff mechanism, but only applicable for the project that meet the COD deadline, and for the project that not meet the COD deadline, so we are still at the time the government is still pending with the applicable policies, and we call it transitional. The transitional here is the project between or the PDP7 and PDP8 for the or for the encouragement mechanism.
Thank you, James. And could you further explain the possibility of the retroactive mechanism for the current temporary purchase price? As I understand, 50% of the selling price under Decision 21.
Yeah, so for the applicable of 50% is because you may see that in circular 15, so there is it seems that it's lack of a negotiation process, and it's lack of a very detailed guidance on how the project and how the transitional investor can negotiate with the EVN for some official project. So the official price should be lower than the selling price mentioned in Decision 21, but it should be the mechanism to define. And the EPTCs, as the power trading company, they just propose for the 50% applicable for any project that would like to generate the energy immediately, by accept this project, because EVN may think that if they apply for the 50% lower than the selling price, so in any case, so if in the future the official price may higher, so they not suffer any loss, and they suffer from any responsibility over the government. But the thing is now, the most of the concern from and most of the expectation from the investor is that they would consider any retroactive mechanism. For example, if in the future they can get for the new price, official price equivalent to 70 or 80% of the price of the selling price, but now they apply for 50% of the selling price. So is there any any backward payment paid from EVN from the period they suffer for the current 50%? And as far as I know, that the EVN and the MOIT propose some amendment of the circular and Decision 21. So we expect that they will accept this mechanism, but as far as I know, there is no draft or no information public from the websites, and we may get a further update when we have some official information from the EVN or from the MOIT on these matters.
Thank you, James. Thanks for all of your generous and professional answers to our questions. And it seems like our audience are still really passionate about asking questions regarding your presentation and your content. And please feel free to answer all these questions after your presentation in the Q&A box.
Yes.
And
okay.
thank you, dear, seeking to have your answers.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Hong-sir. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And I also look forward to hear more of your unique insights in our upcoming in-person events, as in Wind Energy 2023 in Ho Chi Minh City this October.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Very great to hear that.
As we all know, Vietnam aims to integrate more wind power to its power systems, and also set a great goal to produce hydrogen and ammonia by actual renewable sources. However, the shipment for long distance and storage of this energy carrier for a long time presents challenges due to the lack of infrastructure, capital investments, domestic codes, and standards. In our last keynote speech, Mr. Final Hong, senior engineer from PECC3, will provide us with an overview on the current challenges and the prospect of the wind energy for the possible green hydrogen production. So Min, welcome on stage, and the floor is open for you right now.
Oh, hello, welcome to my presentation. My name is Ming. I'm an engineer working at PSCC3. I'm very happy to be here today to share with you our vision and say something about hydrogen technology. Well, basically, my colleague, Mr. Dang and Mr. Huang already told you all about wind energy. And I just want to go a little bit further with a combination of renewable energy with the hydrogen production. Okay. So now I will share my screen. So my presentation today is entitled as Wind Energy for Green Hydrogen Production.
Sorry to interrupt you, but it seems like your presentation are actually displayed in the presenter mode, which means we can not only see your slides, but also see the next slide. So can you switch the mode to the full display mode, which we can have a better picture?
Oh, can you see me?
Yes, it's in full display right now. Everything is good.
So just 1 minute, it's a technical. Stop share. Share. The screen share. Oh, can you see me?
Yes,
okay,
I can see your screen right now.
So I have a very traditional type of content here. Firstly, I would like to spend several minutes to introduce our company and share with you our vision. What are we doing right now and what are we expecting in the future? Then I will introduce some hydrogen technology and its value chains in combination with wind energy. Then section number 3, I will highlight some tendency in PDP8 related to hydrogen, and then maybe list for you some investment opportunity if you are interested in this sector. Section number 4 will be the focus of my talk when I will list some potential position for development of a green hydrogen, and I do a small analysis to find where is the best. Lastly, here some my conclusion and recommendation to Vietnamese authority to develop the business. Okay, let's get started. As I mentioned earlier, I'm working at PSCC3. PSCC3 is abbreviated of Power Engineering Consulting company number 3. We were established in 1979. With more than 40 years in this industry, we have delivered countless projects in power transmission distribution, renewable energy, hydropower, and even thermal power. So now we have more than 500 people, including engineer, legal, commercial special, and a lot of handy worker too. We commit and support decarbonize the power sector as a way to slow down the climate change and protect our environment. We have been working hard to support green energy transition. As a consultant, both in terms of technical and legal, PSCC3 try to bring and maintain the fair rule among all the participants in the industry. We also help investors to keep their interest in the power sector too. So our subject today is hydrogen. While most people like you and even me as an engineer, when we think about hydrogen, we tend to think that hydrogen is a primary energy, but in fact, hydrogen is an energy carrier. its role is similar to that of electricity. Both electricity and hydrogen can be produced by various initial energy sources like coal, gas, wind, and even solar with various technology. Both hydrogen and electricity can be used in many different industrial applications. No heat, no greenhouse gas, particulate, or any pollutant are released when using them. For example, hydrogen fuel cell emit nothing but water. But the crucial difference between hydrogen and electricity is that hydrogen is a chemical form. That means it's compound molecule, not electron. Chemical energy is always attractive because it can be stored and transported easily and in a stable way, as is done in the past and today with fossil fuel like oil, gas, biomass, and even natural gas. Here are some properties of hydrogen that you can see. I drop it into group. Because first property related to low energy or more exactly low energy density, then hydrogen have very low boiling point, so it's hard to transport because you can't use the shipment or the facility that are used to LNG to applying for the hydrogen. And lastly, hydrogen is very flammable and explosive that will cause you very hard to build a building and to comply the firefighting system code. Okay. However, sometimes you may heard that hydrogen and electricity can have a very high CO2 or greenhouse gas intensity in upstream. That means if they were produced from fossil fuel like coal, oil, or natural gas, disadvantages can be overcome by using renewable or nuclear power as initial energy inputs. Here are hydrogen color codes. Based on the energy sources and the methods used to produce hydrogen, they can be categorized into 8 groups, well, 8 colors. But 3 most common are black or gray, and then blue, and then green. Black is the hydrogen is extracted from natural gas by a special reaction called steam reforming. Blue hydrogen is the same as black hydrogen, but at the end, carbon dioxide is captured by a special equipment. Green hydrogen is hydrogen that is produced by electrolysis process using renewable energy and water. Every year, about 80 million tons hydrogen were produced, and it's also generate nearly about nearly 1 billion tons CO2. That means 1 kilo hydrogen will release 10 kilo CO2. The main application of hydrogen are for oil refinery to produce ammonia and maybe to produce methanol, steel, or gas synthesis. Green hydrogen production costs depend on mostly at electricity costs, then taxes, rate fee, and then the capacity of the electrolyzer. In recent, steam reforming is dominant and most hydrogen are black. Electrolysis account for less than 2% of total amount produced hydrogen. Here you can see some typical or common technology used to produce hydrogen by electrolysis process. The two most common are alkaline electrolysis and PIM, or proton exchange membrane. The higher pressure you require, the lower operating temperature will be. Now let's take a look at PDP8, how the master plan mentioned about hydrogen and wind energy. So by 2030, power demand in Vietnam is predicted to increase at a rate of 8.8%, and by 2050 to 4.7%. At COP26 in London, Vietnamese leader also committed to phase out of fossil fuel. And I think the only approach is integrated more renewable energy to power system of Vietnam. In the other hand, power plant, well, traditional power plant like coal or gas have to be switched from LNG and gas to hydrogen. That means the hydrogen demand will be up significantly. Orientation to 2050, as you can see, thermal power plant run entirely by hydrogen will be 7,000 megawatt, and so on. PDP8 strongly develop offshore wind power in combination with other forms of renewable energy to produce new energy, hydrogen and green ammonia. Then they say unlimited development on the basis ensuring national defense and energy security and bring about energy. So that means according to Power Development Plan number 8 for the period 2021 to 2050, the number and the demand of hydrogen will go up significantly. Several studies were conducted in Vietnam, and its results pointed out that Vietnam is considered to have the best wind resources in Southeast Asia. In the nearshore, offshore, or even onshore coastal region, the annual average speed of 9 to 11 meters per second are recorded. Generally, wind speeds are declining further inland. So one factor you should keep in mind that the depth and the consistency of seabed has a major impact on the choice along the coastal on the north, as well as in the south of Vietnam. The seabed can be characterized as relatively shallow and consistent. Here are some of our candidates today: Ninh Thuận, Bình Dương, Gia Lai, Kiên Giang, and Bình Thuận. I do a quick study and list here some potential pros and cons. And Ninh Thuận, it turned out to be the best place to develop a project using renewable energy as wind power to produce hydrogen. So you may be asked, why Ninh Thuận? Well, my answer is because in this area, there's a lot of existing power plant, and the province have just over 500,000 civilians, and the industry is still at poor level. That means the power demand is relatively low. The prominent issue is excess of energy. So that means low load factor will be. So the engineer may be considered to convert and store the energy in chemical form, such as hydrogen or ammonia. So now you may be wonder how to develop a project. So that's a very complicated process, but I will highlight some first point. First, you need to contact with DOIT, that means Department of Industry and Trade, and at the same time with Department of Natural Resources and environment. You need to conduct a meeting with them to possess a license for investigation. Then a site visit will be, and some detailed study will be conducted. So all of my presentation up till now sound very impressive and attractive, I think. But I have to mention for you that some challenges are present there to develop the hydrogen. First, renewable is costly at the moment. Green hydrogen production costs 3 or 2 times more expensive than blue hydrogen, and even 3 or 6 times more expensive than gray hydrogen. So that means in the near term, gray hydrogen, that means from coal and gas, will remain the most cost competitive option for the industry. Regulation limit the development of clean hydrogen industry because up till now, there are no circular decree to guideline the framework to develop the business. Investment and infrastructures are also at slow rate now. And the most important is Vietnam does not have the industry and the facility to fabricate dedicated equipment for hydrogen industry. Lastly, I would like to make some conclusion. First, Vietnam will phase out coal power gradually. Then wind power will be increased significantly with onshore for near term and with offshore for long term. That means after 2030, remarkably increasing. Chemical forms like hydrogen and ammonia will be considered the best to store the renewable energy and to transport it. Conventional power plants like coal, LNG, and domestic gas shall be switched to hydrogen and ammonia in the future. And as a result of my analysis, Ninh Thuan is considered the best province for green hydrogen production project. Others in South Central region and in Southern Vietnam are also in list, but you should consider more factors. Some recommendation to Vietnamese authority, that is to develop successfully a business framework for wind energy and also for green hydrogen. Vietnamese authorities should issue more appropriate policy mechanism to develop a value chain. They also need to stimulate international investment for green hydrogen, support R&D and manufacture to bring down the cost, because at the time, green hydrogen is very costly. Build infrastructure such as 1,000 or 100 of kilometers of pipeline to transport green hydrogen. Develop and issue technical code and standard for those who working in technical like me. Okay, thank you for listening. I'm very happy to joining with you today. So if you have any question, please do not hesitate. Take out your microphone and I will happy to answer your question. Thank you.
Min, thank you so much for your really excellent presentations and detailed explanations about the potential of green hydrogen production via renewables in Vietnam and its possible future. Of course, here I have some really interesting questions from our audience, and we can't wait to hear your answers to these questions. So first of all, I'm actually wondering, what are the common process to produce hydrogen, and why does electrolysis process have very high efficiencies, but green hydrogen still takes relatively small proportion in Vietnam market?
Okay. Basically, we have two common ways to produce hydrogen. First, as I mentioned earlier, steam reforming reaction that's were used in oil refinery to produce more than 90% of hydrogen today. The second is electrolysis process. And electrolysis process also divided into three subsections more, like alkaline electrolysis, proton extract membrane electrolysis, and autothermal electrolysis. So about the question why green hydrogen and electrolysis process still account very small, that's because black or gray hydrogen is very cheap to produce, and it's also produced as a byproduct. That means it's not a primary product, but it's a byproduct in the oil refinery. So in the future, if we commit to phase out the fossil fuel and we want to keep and protect our environment, I think a lot of study and a lot of investment need to do to improve the electrolysis technology.
Thank you, Min. And my second question is, how long does it yearly or typically take to develop a green hydrogen project, especially when it's combined with the wind energy or solar energy or the other renewable resources?
That's what very interesting question even for me. So I will divide the answer into two sections. To develop a wind power project in Vietnam, while we should take about 2 years, 1 year or even more. You should take all the feasibility study and have the license to construction. But all about hydrogen, I can't say anything at this time because in Vietnam, right now, there are no circular or decree to guideline to guide the green hydrogen industry. So I think for the pilot project, this will maybe cost and take about 3, 4, or even 5 years. Yeah, that's a very long time. And this also depends on the capacity of the plant, the production plant.
Thank you, Min. And also, as I remember you mentioned in your presentations, you said that more codes and standards shall be actually issued. So I'm actually wondering what kind of codes and standards are you mentioning, and why it should be issued?
Oh yeah, I suppose that this question maybe came from maybe one who is an engineer like me. He very concerned about technical aspect. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, hydrogen is a very explosive and flammable substance. So to deal with this substance, you have a very strict and safety code and standard. In America, we have standard B31.12. That means hydrogen piping and pipeline. That's describe and related or everything related to hydrogen. But in Vietnam, there are no alternative, or we have no choice. At this time, if you want to develop a hydrogen project in Vietnam, you must apply for a form to use the American code standard in Vietnam area. Yeah, that's this process will be cost you a lot of time and effort, I say.
All right, I mean, thanks again for your very detailed and useful answers. And I also very much look forward to witness, more wind projects supporting the potential green hydrogen production in Vietnam under the new regulatory circumstances in the future. Okay. As we approach the conclusion of our Impact webinar today, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you joining us today. It's been a really insightful and engaging session filled with valuable discussions and expert insights. Throughout our discussion, we've explored the immense potential that Vietnam holds as a hub for renewable energy investments, particularly in the wind sector. The opportunity emerging from PDP8 have captivated investors across the energy transition sector, eager to contribute to Vietnam's sustainable and clean energy future. Once again, please remember, today's Impact webinar is also a virtual session of Vietnam's largest and most influential wind energy event, ASEAN Wind Energy 2023, which will take place on October 30 and 31 at the Dora Center, Ho Chi Minh City. This event brings the highest level decision makers across the entire wind value chains, including Norwegian Embassy, British Embassy, Germany Embassy, Danish Embassy, Copenhagen Infrastructure Partner, Goldwind, Vestas, GE Renewable Energy, Equinor, EDP Renewables to discuss the latest innovations and fill your business future by meaningful connections here. As we draw this webinar to a close, I also encourage you to reflect on this webinar insights you have in today. I hope you live this virtual gathering inspired, equipped with knowledge to make informed discussions and navigate the wind investment landscape in Vietnam efficiently. Remember, the journey towards a sustainable and decarbonized future requires collective efforts and collaborations. Let's leverage the lessons learned today and continue forging partnerships, sharing knowledge, and embracing opportunities that drive Vietnam's energy transition forward. Please stay connected with us through our post-webinar resources and materials, which will be made available to further support your exploration of wind investments opportunities in Vietnam. Thank you for being part of the Impact webinar today. Together, let's create a sustainable and a prosperous future for Vietnam's power sector. Thank you and bye.